We're scraping the absolute bottom of the league with a 28% pressure rate, forcing Montez Sweat to fight off triple teams just to justify his paycheck. We're staring at a total collapse of this core's winning window if Ryan Poles doesn't stop hoarding cap space and actually fix this roster right now. You can stockpile all the draft capital you want, but if you can't put the opposing quarterback in the dirt, you're just burning money in the fourth quarter. It's a massive failure in asset management. We spent nearly a straight decade ignoring the edge, slapping cheap veteran minimums on a bleeding artery, and the cost of that negligence is a broken defensive scheme. We'll get into the draft board and a massive expensive trade leak surrounding Jalen Carter that just hit the wire in a second, but there's a totally different, quiet storm brewing. A proven 28-year-old game wrecker, a guy who just dropped a 12-sack season with 4 forced fumbles, literally just demanded a ticket out of a rebuilding franchise, and his ticking contract deadline completely rewires the offseason market. I'll break down exactly who this Terminator is and why his $18.1 million base salary is the ultimate market exploit at the very end of this video. If you demand front office accountability instead of just blind offseason hope, hit the like button. Let's start with the draft board because the national media finally woke up to the math. If you spent any time tracking this defensive line over the last couple of years, you already knew exactly where the investment was failing. We didn't need an ESPN draft guru to confirm we're bleeding value on the edge, but Mel Kiper Jr. went ahead and put it in print anyway. In his latest 2026 mock draft, Kiper's got Chicago grabbing Missouri edge rusher Zion Young at number 25 overall. He's pointing straight at a deficit that hasn't just been a recent misstep, it's been years of systematic failure in the draft room. The cold hard stats tell the whole ugly story. Last season, the Bears scraped together a pathetic 35 sacks as a team, tying us for 22nd across the league. Our pressure rate? A miserable 28.0%, all the way down at 29th overall. Those numbers are a fireable offense for a scouting department. You can't win in today's game if you aren't converting cap space into quarterback pressures. Montez Sweat did everything humanly possible to earn his contract with 10 sacks, but offensive coordinators just laughed and schemed around him with double and triple teams. Beyond Sweat, there was literally nobody on that edge producing a positive return. Veo Odeyengo was supposed to be the guy, the complimentary piece we bought to change the math. Instead, one single sack in 8 games before an Achilles injury shut his whole season down. Just like that, Chicago was right back where it started, holding dead money and begging for answers from a dry pool. Kiper dropped a stat that proves this is a deep-rooted organizational flaw. Despite struggling to find consistent quarterback pressure for a few years now, Chicago hasn't used a top 50 pick on an edge rusher since Leonard Floyd went 9th in 2016. Almost a full decade of trying to patch this premium position with bargain bin free agents and late-round lotto tickets. Down at Missouri, Zion Young put up 6.5 sacks and 46 pressures. His game is built on pure power and a relentless motor. NBC Sports' Connor Rogers says NFL teams are higher on him than the media. He's big, tough, and took a giant leap as a pass rusher. The Bears will love that he's built for all 3 downs. The interior is showing signs of life with Gervon Dexter, Neville Gallimore, and Kentavious Street. We've got depth inside, but none of those big bodies can make up for the fact that we don't have a credible second threat off the edge. If Zion Young is the answer at number 25, it's a massive, long overdue correction. But what if Ryan Poles doesn't want to wait for a rookie to mature? A massive trade leak just hit the wire involving Jalen Carter, and this move would completely rewire our front line. But before we dive into that Carter chaos, we've got to talk about the elephant that didn't enter the room. The massive blockbuster move everybody swore Chicago was going to make first. It came and went. We weren't even in the room. But if you think Poles is just packing it in, you're dead wrong. The hunt for a serious defensive upgrade is still wide open. A totally different name just hit the radar, and this guy could completely rewrite the violence on our front line. Watching other front offices manipulate the cap while we sit idle is just bad business, but panicking and overpaying is exactly how you end up eating dead money for a decade. For weeks, it was all Max Crosby, but those talks never actually got real. Settle in because it's a good thing they didn't. We all saw the news that Vegas was shipping Crosby to the Ravens for 2 first-round picks, but the deal completely collapsed. Crosby failed his physical because of a bad knee. The Ravens backed out, and they threw $112 million at Trey Hendrickson instead. ESPN's Jeremy Fowler reported we kept tabs on it, but Poles wasn't about to throw heavy punches in a bidding war for a guy failing medicals. You want an elite edge rusher, you've got to pay the market rate. But 2 first-rounders for a busted knee? That's how you bankrupt a franchise. Poles made the right calculation dodging that trap. We kept our draft capital in the vault, but holding picks doesn't magically put the opposing quarterback in the dirt. Then, out of nowhere, a massive development broke. Reports state the Philadelphia Eagles are officially taking trade calls on Jalen Carter. Fowler dropped the bomb. Philly's phone started blowing up about Carter right after they handed a massive $78 million extension to Jordan Davis. Howie Roseman has to look at the books and figure out if they can afford both. Early signs? The money isn't there. Bears insider Ben Devine didn't mince words. Jalen Carter is exactly what the Chicago Bears need most, but the Eagles wanting to trade him before having to pay him speaks volumes. This is exactly how you exploit over-leveraged teams. Philly backed themselves into a corner by paying Davis, and now they're forced to liquidate top-tier talent. Carter's 24 years old, an All-Pro, and has 37 quarterback hits since 2023. Those aren't empty stats, that's premium production. You drop a guy like that into our rotation and the entire value of the defense spikes instantly. Easton Butler at 247 Sports says the Bears are one of 5 teams sniffing around, alongside the Packers and Niners. If Green Bay is calculating a move for him, the asset is legit. We can't let them acquire a monster like this and devalue our own offensive line twice a year. But Carter comes with baggage, the fatal crash in Georgia, the suspension for spitting on Dak Prescott in 2025, and a PFF grade that slid to 57th while he was playing through a shoulder injury. The spitting incident is just a lack of professional discipline. The drop in production was clearly a medical issue, not a sudden loss of talent. Whoever trades for him has to decide on his $27 million fifth-year option by May. $27 million is a massive chunk of our budget. You don't hand that out unless the medicals are flawless. If the price tanks, Poles has to take the meeting. But while everyone is arguing about Carter's shoulder, another elite pass rusher just quietly demanded a ticket out of his city. And for us in Chicago, he's the perfect fit. I'm talking about realism and an opportunity that's screaming at us on the market. We've got a realistic alternative, and his name is Josh Sweat. The massive blockbuster everybody dreamed would happen? It never did. But while everybody's obsessing over big names, this guy just stepped into the light as a much smarter investment. Ryan Poles admitted we kicked the tires on Crosby before those talks died. Now Crosby is stuck in Vegas with a bad knee, and we still don't have an answer off the edge. But on March 9th, Johnny Venerable on the PNHX Sports podcast dropped a report that flipped the market. I think Josh Sweat will get traded. When Jonathan Gannon got fired, Josh Sweat asked to be traded. He wants out. When a premium player demands a trade from a rebuilding franchise, you exploit it. Sweat wants out, and Chicago has the cap space to absorb him. He's 28 years old and in his prime. In 2024, he put up 12 sacks and forced 4 fumbles, tied for second in the entire NFL. Those aren't empty volume stats. Forcing 4 fumbles a year means stealing possessions and flipping the field for the offense. The money is a total steal. He's on a deal worth $76.4 million, but has a $7.22 million option bonus deadline right now. If we trade for him before that, we absorb an $18.1 million base salary for 2026. Poles can restructure that down to a tiny $5.5 million cap hit. Restructuring an $18 million base for double-digit sacks is exactly how you maximize your salary cap. In Dennis Allen's scheme, Sweat is a perfect fit. He's 6'5", 265 pounds, pure mass to stop the run and the burst to collapse the pocket. Allen's scheme is fundamentally broken if the front four can't generate their own pressure. And the best part? You line up Josh Sweat directly opposite Montez Sweat. The marketing pays for itself, but the impact is what matters. A terrifying two-edge rush we haven't seen in this city for a long time. You put 2 Sweats on the edge, and you force offensive coordinators to keep tight ends in to block. It changes the entire math on third down. The market is playing into our hands. Baltimore, Buffalo, and Dallas already spent their cash. Chicago has a wide-open lane to get him for a third or fourth round pick. A day 2 pick for a guaranteed 12-sack player is an elite transaction. The ROI is off the charts. Chicago dodged the Crosby bullet, and we're still checking the risk on Carter, but Josh Sweat is sitting right there. He's realistic, affordable, and he's a force. That $18.1 million market exploit I warned you about at the start, this is him. If Ryan Poles executes this trade, this defense immediately returns to being a dominant unit. If you agree this front office needs to stop hoarding cap space and finally buy a real pass rush, hit subscribe and stick around. It's time to hold them accountable. Until the next video, bear down.